I'm 48 and recently widowed. My husband passed away from a sudden heart attack last December. He was only 51. We'd been married for 27 years. He was my best friend, my partner in everything. His death tore a hole in my world so big, I don't even know who I am anymore. For the first few weeks, everything was a blur, meals dropped off by neighbors, casseroles I never touched, flowers wilting in every room, and that awkward pity from people who didn't know what to say. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I was just existing, stuck in this weird limbo of shock and exhaustion. That's when my son, Tyler, stepped in. He's 22, just out of college and still figuring out what to do with his life. He moved back home almost immediately after the funeral and brought his girlfriend, Camila, with him. He said it would help me not feel alone. At first, I was grateful. Camila was sweet, helpful, always cleaning the kitchen or offering to cook. She took initiative, like organizing my pantry and setting up a weekly grocery delivery, which I didn't even ask for. Tyler seemed happy to have her around, and I didn't want to be a burden. I thought, maybe this could be a good thing. But within a month, something shifted. Camila stopped asking if she could help, and started acting like the house was hers. She rearranged the living room furniture while I was out running errands. She donated some of my husband's old coats because she thought I shouldn't have to see them hanging in the closet anymore. She changed the password on the Wi-Fi without telling me because the old one was too easy to guess. When I asked Tyler about it, he shrugged and said Camila was just trying to help me move on. But I didn't ask to move on. I wasn't ready. Then I found out she'd been going through my things. One night, I couldn't sleep and went down to the basement, where I keep boxes of photo albums, holiday decorations, old clothes, all that sentimental stuff. I walked in and found Camila sitting cross-legged in the middle of the floor, surrounded by wedding pictures and childhood keepsakes. She didn't hear me come in. She was holding a photo of me and my husband from our honeymoon. Just staring at it. She jumped when she saw me and said she was just organizing. I couldn't find words. I just turned and left. I didn't say anything to Tyler that night, but the next morning, half those boxes were gone. She told me she was helping me declutter. I haven't seen the photos since. A week after the photo boxes disappeared, I came home from grocery shopping and found Camila in the kitchen, wearing one of my sweaters. Not a borrowed hoodie or an old t-shirt, this was my favorite cashmere sweater. The one my husband gave me on our 20th anniversary. I hadn't even worn it since the funeral. It was folded and packed away with a few other things I wasn't ready to look at yet. And there she was, stirring soup like she owned the place, wearing it like it was hers. I just stood in the doorway, stunned. My voice came out hoarse when I asked where she got it. She smiled and said she found it while organizing some of the old boxes in the closet. Then she told me she thought it would be comforting to see it being used again, instead of collecting dust. I wanted to scream. Instead, I walked straight past her, locked myself in my room, and cried harder than I had since the night of the funeral. It felt like she wasn't just touching my things, she was erasing me. Like she'd decided I didn't need reminders of my life before she arrived. Tyler didn't seem to get it. When I told him what happened, he said I was overreacting. He said Camila was just trying to help me move through my grief and that I was holding on to pain like a safety blanket. I couldn't believe it. My son, who grew up seeing how close his father and I were, who watched me sobbing into my pillow for weeks, he was defending her. Camila apologized later, kind of. She said she didn't mean to upset me, but she thought the house could use some fresh energy. I asked her not to touch my things anymore. She just nodded and said she understood. But that night, I caught her in my bathroom, using my skincare. My prescription moisturizer, the one with my name on it. That's when I realized something chilling. She wasn't just making herself at home. She was making herself me. About a week after the sweater incident, I tried to reclaim a small bit of normal. I booked a haircut with the stylist I'd been going to for over a decade, Maria, a woman who knew exactly how I liked my bangs, who always kept a cup of peppermint tea waiting for me. I hadn't been back since the funeral. I wasn't ready. But I finally felt brave enough to go. I needed that sliver of routine. That tiny piece of me. I called to confirm the appointment the day before, and that's when I got the shock. Maria's receptionist told me I'd already come in earlier that week, and that I'd changed the appointment myself. Apparently, I'd requested something fresh and youthful, and said I wanted a total refresh, just like before. My voice caught in my throat. I hadn't made that call. So I asked who came in. They checked the name on file. It was mine. But then the receptionist hesitated and said, "Well, it didn't really sound like you. I thought maybe you had a cold." Then she said the woman paid in cash. Maria wasn't available to talk, but she'd made a note that my style had shifted a bit. I knew instantly who it was. Camila came home that night glowing, wearing lipstick I'd never seen her use before, carrying a boutique hair products bag, and flipping her hair like she was in a commercial. It was my haircut. Same layers, same subtle highlights. Everything. When I confronted her, she played dumb at first, said she didn't know I had that appointment. Then, when I didn't budge, she smiled and said she just thought we had the same face shape. Then she added something I'll never forget. She said, besides, I figured you weren't using it. She meant my life. She saw me grieving, shattered, hollowed out by loss, and she moved in like a shadow filling the empty spaces. And Tyler? He just kept saying she was being supportive. That night, I checked my closet again. 3 of my dresses were missing. And a pair of earrings my husband gave me years ago? Gone from the jewelry box. She hadn't just crossed the line. She was pretending to be me. My birthday came a month after the haircut incident. I had told Tyler, multiple times, that I didn't want to celebrate. Not this year. Not with everything still so raw. All I wanted was a quiet day. No cake. No guests. Just peace. He said he understood. Camila had other plans. I woke up that morning to music blasting downstairs. Balloons. Streamers. The smell of cupcakes baking. And a crowd of strangers I didn't even recognize sitting in my living room when I came down in pajamas and puffy eyes. Apparently, she'd invited people from her job, her gym, and even some of Tyler's college friends, people I barely knew, if at all. And there she was in the center of it all, wearing my favorite blue dress, one of the ones that had mysteriously vanished from my closet, laughing like it was her housewarming party. I stood there frozen. No one even noticed me for a solid 5 minutes. Then someone handed me a mimosa, wished me happy birthday, and asked if Camila was my daughter. Camila laughed and corrected them. No, I'm the girlfriend. But I basically run the house now. She said it right in front of me. And Tyler? He just chuckled awkwardly and didn't say a word. She gave a speech later. Toasted to family, healing, and new beginnings. It was vague but had this strange undertone, like she was claiming my grief as part of her own journey. Then she turned to me and said, I hope today shows you that you're not alone anymore. You don't have to hold on to the past. Everyone clapped. I smiled. I thanked her. And then I excused myself, went upstairs, and locked the door. I cried harder than I had in weeks, not because of grief, but because I felt like a guest in my own life. Like I was being slowly erased and repainted by someone younger, prettier, louder, someone who saw my pain as permission. That night, after everyone left, I came down to find Camila sitting in my recliner, holding the photo album of my wedding that I still hadn't been able to look at since the funeral. She smiled and said, You were such a beautiful bride. I hope I look like that when it's my turn. I didn't sleep that night. Because something in her tone. Something in the way she looked at Tyler after she said that. I realized this wasn't about helping me grieve. She wasn't just replacing me in the house. She was aiming to replace me everywhere. Even as a wife. It happened 3 nights after the birthday ambush. I couldn't sleep again. Lately, sleep comes in short, heavy bursts, like falling into water and clawing my way back up gasping. That night, I was up around 2 a.m., just pacing. I went downstairs for some chamomile tea, hoping to calm my racing thoughts. The lights were off. The kitchen was quiet. But then I heard voices from the living room. Camila and Tyler. I froze just before turning the corner, something instinctual making me stop. Their voices were soft, too soft, but I heard just enough. She was giggling, teasing him. Then I heard her say it. You're such a good husband. Not boyfriend. Husband. And Tyler didn't correct her. He just said something back, something low and affectionate that I couldn't make out, but it wasn't denial. It wasn't what are you talking about or not yet. It was the kind of response you give someone when you're used to the fantasy they've built. When you've started to believe it, too. I stood there, one hand pressed against the wall, listening to the silence after. Then Camila whispered something that chilled me to the bone. She's not going to be here forever, Ty. You know that, right? I backed away before I heard his answer. Not going to be here forever? What did that mean? I went back upstairs, heart pounding so loud I thought I might faint. I couldn't stop shaking. My brain tried to come up with 100 harmless explanations, but none of them made sense. I locked my bedroom door that night, first time ever. And in the morning, Camila acted like nothing had happened. She made pancakes, wore my slippers, kissed Tyler on the cheek and called me mom again, like it wasn't completely unhinged. She's never called me that before. And Tyler? He just smiled like everything was perfectly normal. 2 days after that night, after she called him her husband and called me mom, I couldn't take it anymore. The house didn't feel like mine, My son didn't feel like my son, and Camila, she felt like something pretending to be human but wearing my life like a costume. I started watching more carefully. I wasn't going to lose everything. Not quietly. That morning, while they were out grocery shopping, I decided to do a sweep of the house. I don't know what I was looking for. Proof? A reason to confront them? Maybe just something that told me I wasn't going insane. I didn't find much in the bedroom. Just more of my clothes folded into her dresser. One of my old perfumes on her nightstand. My husband's cufflinks in her jewelry tray. But it wasn't until I checked the kitchen trash that I found it. Folded up between a crumpled pizza box and some wet paper towels was a page torn out of a wedding planner notebook. And it wasn't mine. I unfolded it slowly. There, in Camila's neat handwriting, was a list titled, Post-Wedding Checklist. Under it, a bulleted list. Some things were normal: change last name, update address, joint bank account. Then further down, make decision about house storage unit pickup, her boxes, ask Tyler about selling the piano, reminder, it was her mom's. I almost dropped the paper. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely breathe. Her boxes, meaning my things. My mother's piano, the one thing I swore I'd never part with. And make a decision about the house? It was like she was planning a future where I just wasn't here anymore. I sat at the kitchen table staring at that list for 10 full minutes, trying to figure out if it was real. If I'd misunderstood. But no. It was in her handwriting. Her little hearts above the eyes. Her gel pen. Her delusion. This wasn't about grief anymore. Or support. This woman was planning a life with my son. In my house. Wearing my clothes. With my entire existence packed away like a garage sale. And Tyler? He either didn't see it. Or worse, he did, and didn't care. I waited until Camila left the house again. She said she had a nail appointment and kissed Tyler on the cheek before floating out the door like she hadn't rewritten my whole life in her head. The moment the door closed, I called his name. Calmly. No yelling, no emotion. I told him we needed to talk. He sat at the kitchen table, barely looking up from his phone. I pulled out the crumpled wedding checklist and placed it in front of him. He stared at it for a second, then looked up at me with this flat expression I didn't recognize. I asked him quietly if he knew about this. He didn't even blink. He said yes. That one word hit me harder than I expected. Not a protest, not confusion. Just yes. Like it was nothing. I asked him if they were planning to get married. He said, eventually. Then added, we've talked about it. What's the big deal? I reminded him that his father passed away 4 months ago. That I'm still grieving. That we're all still trying to breathe through the dust. And he just shrugged. He said Camila was helping him feel normal again. That she brought life back into the house. I asked him what I was then. A shadow? A burden? Something he was just tolerating while she designed the fantasy life? He didn't answer. So I asked him something I didn't want to ask, but had to. Did you two plan this? Did she move in to be with me, or to be with you? He finally looked me in the eye. And what he said broke me in a way nothing else had. He said, we didn't plan anything. But I think things are happening the way they're supposed to. Like this was fate. Like her stepping over my grief and into my clothes, my routines, my home, was some twisted version of destiny. I told him this couldn't continue. That she needed to go. I couldn't live like this anymore. And he said the words I'll never forget. If it's too hard for you here, maybe you should go stay with Aunt Carla for a while. He wanted me to leave. He was choosing her. And the part that chilled me most? He didn't even say it with anger. Just blankness. Like I'd been downgraded from parent to tenant. And my lease was up. The next morning, I packed a suitcase. Not because I was leaving for good, yet. But because I needed to look like I was giving up. Like I was folding quietly, just as Camila probably hoped I would. I told Tyler I was going to Aunt Carla's for a week or two. Just to get some space. To clear my head. He nodded like he was doing me a favor. Said he'd check in every few days and that Camila would take care of the house while I was gone. She hugged me at the door. Actually hugged me. Said she was proud of me for taking steps forward. Then she asked if I wanted her to donate anything while I was away, you know, from the back room or those old boxes downstairs. I smiled. And told her no. Told her I'd already made arrangements. What she didn't know was that I had a storage unit lined up before I even told Tyler I was leaving. And over the next 2 days, while they were both out house hunting on the weekends like it was a cute little game, I slowly started boxing up the things that mattered. Not the big stuff, they'd notice that. But the things I couldn't replace. My husband's watch. Our wedding album. The old journals he used to scribble in and tuck under the nightstand. My mother's letters. The piano sheet music. His cufflinks, the ones Camila had quietly claimed. The quilt my grandmother made. I wrapped everything carefully and drove it all to a climate-controlled unit on the other side of town. I used my maiden name. Paid in cash. Each time I left and came back, they didn't ask where I'd gone. They were too busy planning their life. I kept a log. Wrote down everything I heard, everything I noticed. Camila was already telling people she and Tyler inherited the house. I overheard her say that on the phone to someone, I think her cousin. She was talking about changing the wallpaper, tearing out the garden, getting rid of the old kitchen vibe. That vibe was the one my husband and I built. She wasn't just replacing me. She was erasing us. And my son, my only child, was letting her. I waited until they were both gone. Sunday morning, Camila had a dress fitting, yes, a wedding dress, and Tyler was with her at the boutique. I knew I had about 4 hours, maybe 5 if I was lucky. I'd already called the locksmith the night before. Told him I was recently widowed and needed to change the locks for safety. He didn't ask questions. Just showed up right on time with a quiet nod and got to work. By noon, the house was mine again. I closed every curtain. Packed the last few boxes. Walked through every room one more time, touching the walls, breathing in the memories like air I'd never get back. Then I sat down at the dining table and wrote a note. No yelling. No name-calling. Just the truth. This house was built with love. Real love. Between two people who chose each other every day for 27 years. You tried to turn it into a stage for a performance no one asked for. Consider the curtain closed. The photos? Gone. The heirlooms? Gone. The memories you couldn't fake? Safe. I gave birth to a son. Not a stranger. If he ever finds his way back, he'll know where to reach me. Until then, this house isn't yours to play house in. Find your dream somewhere else. Mom. I left the note on the fridge, tucked under the same magnet that used to hold our family grocery list, the one Camila had replaced with her meal prep goals chart. Then I walked out the front door, locked it behind me, and slid the new keys into my coat pocket. I didn't cry. Not this time. Because grief didn't make me weak. It made me clear. I stayed in the parking lot across the street, behind tinted glass. I just needed to see their faces one last time, not for revenge, not even for closure. I just needed to know if any of it meant anything to them. At 3:12 p.m., Tyler's car pulled into the driveway. Camila stepped out first, holding a garment bag like she was returning from some fairy tale fitting, giddy with delusion. Tyler followed, keys in hand. He went to unlock the front door. Stopped. Tried again. Then tried harder. I watched his body stiffen, his whole posture shift. He called Camila over. She tried her key next. Nothing. That's when the panic set in. She pulled out her phone, pacing on the porch. Tyler slammed his palm against the door, shouting something I couldn't hear. He bent down, probably checking for signs of forced entry, anything to explain why their house suddenly wasn't theirs anymore. And then Camila opened the mailbox. That's where I left a second copy of the note. She read it silently. Then crumpled it in her hand, stomped her heel, and screamed so loud I heard it from my car. Tyler snatched the paper from her. Read it. Didn't say a word. Just stood there, still. That's when I started my engine. I didn't wait to see what came next. I didn't care if he called, if she cried, if they pounded on the windows until their hands bled. Because it was done. The storage unit was full. The house was secure. The deed, which had never been in Tyler's name, was now protected under a trust. I'd already filed for a restraining order. Camila's behavior gave me more than enough to justify it. The locksmith had installed a camera. And Tyler? He'd have to figure out who he was without her voice in his ear and my home under her feet. I'm staying at Aunt Carla's now. I drink coffee on her porch every morning in peace. I keep the phone close, but it hasn't rung. Not from him. Not even once. And that silence hurts. More than I thought it would. But it also tells me everything I need to know. You can love someone with your whole heart. Raise them. Protect them. Even grieve with them. But if they choose to let someone else erase you, you let them go. Because I may have lost my husband. But I'll be damned if I lose myself too.